Joining us live in the studio for a discussion of Australian politics is Gerard Rennick, Liberal Senator. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Annalise.
Now, coronavirus obviously extremely concerning in Australia, not just the health impacts, also the economic impacts. Are you concerned about what kind of impact it's having on Queensland?
Look, I think there will be a slowdown in activity. The feedback I've been getting from people I know who run businesses are talking about supply chains slowing down. So, look, I am worried in the sense that, I do expect an economic slowdown, but I have confidence in the government. I think we've taken the right measures so far, and we've managed to minimise the risk.
What measures has the government taken to mitigate the economic risk?
Effectively, I guess the best way to minimise economic risk is to minimise the health risk. So we've obviously stopped flights from China, people returning from China, and we've just introduced a new travel ban on Iran. And then we've also had a positive policy on, a proactive policy, on basically containment and keeping track of people who are arriving at the airports.
But economically speaking, it is taking its toll now. We've seen 7 days consecutively poor performance on the ASX.
Sure.
Should the government be looking at stimulus?
Look, I think that there's a fair reason for infrastructure building as a form of stimulus. I don't think we should be reacting to the coronavirus as a one-off, because we don't know how long this coronavirus is going to last for. So, we don't want to necessarily spend a lot of money now only to find out that, we haven't got on top of it in 6 months' time. So, look, I think we should just deal with the economic conditions as they come. It should be noted that iron ore has held up, which is a big part of the budget, and coming close back to a surplus. So, look, I think at this stage we should be obviously alert but not alarmed.
Obviously, that iron ore price, though, is quite precarious when we're looking at China being our biggest trading partner, especially in that space, and the massive slowdown they've had there is not going to end anytime soon.
No, but at the same time, though, they have managed to contain the coronavirus, and if you look at the overall numbers, I think you'll find that, China as a whole, it's 1.4 billion people, so there's still a lot of people out there living their daily lives. There's still a need for infrastructure in China. It's a big country, it's got a lot to grow. So look, are we going to have short-term impacts? Absolutely, but I think we will get through it in the long term.
So when you say that we should look at that stimulus maybe 6 months down the road, what form should that take then? Well,
look, ideally, if the government was to go with stimulus, I'm personally a big fan of more infrastructure building. I think if we're going to have a growing population, we need to build more infrastructure, and in particular dams. And I realise there's a bit of a complication there because states build dams, but I would like to see, a sit down with COAG and look at a way that we can, build constructive infrastructure that's going to generate income that will grow people. Because the other alternative, as discussed before, was lowering interest rates, and we're almost run out of petrol in the tank there. And lowering interest rates really, I think, outside a band of 4 to 8%, has only hurt older people, pensioners in particular, and obviously younger people looking at getting into the housing market. So the other option is to looking at using infrastructure bonds to basically build infrastructure. And if you look at the history of Australia, after World War I, they built Hume Dam and Eldon Dam in Victoria, 2 of our biggest dams. After World War II, they went and built the Snowy River project as a way of generating economic growth. And I think that's something we should look to our past as a way of guiding us in the future.
Should the government be looking at quantitative easing?
Look, that's a question for the RBA, but I do think that all options should be on the table. It's worth noting that other countries have adopted quantitative easing over the last decade since the GFC. So, for example, the US government bought mortgage bonds, or the Federal Reserve, over there bought mortgage bonds. The European Central Bank bought corporate bonds, and the Japanese Central Bank, buys up shares on the Nikkei. Now, personally, I don't agree with any of those bond purchases. I don't think they were the right type of bonds to buy, because effectively with mortgage bonds, for example, that was the Federal Reserve bailing out banks. I think what we need to be doing is basically growing the capital stock of this country, and by building infrastructure that provides essential services, we're actually we're meeting the demand of increased immigration, and not only that, essential services that generate income will then therefore provide more income for schools and hospitals.
So did you say before, though, that should be in the form of infrastructure bonds?
Sure.
So you'd like the RBA to be buying infrastructure bonds as a form of quantitative easing?
Well, whether or not it's the RBA or... Look, because it's a fiscal measure, that one. So we need to work together with the RBA and possibly Infrastructure Australia. and look at. But if you're going to go down that route, you'd have to have it. I believe it should be done via a bank where you have strict lending rules, so that we don't do anything because going down the road of quantitative easing is not really an ideal outcome. However, it has been done before in the past. Alexander Hamilton, Lachlan Macquarie, Roosevelt did it in the Depression. So it can be done. If it's done constructively, then I support it. But, look, it's got its risks as well.
It does indeed. Gerard Rennick, thank you for your time.
Cheers. Thanks, Annalise.